They called it a camp, a word that sounds harmless, almost ordinary. But what rose in the fields of southern Poland in 1940 was no camp. It was a machine, a place where architecture itself became a weapon, where design, the very thing we usually celebrate for creating beauty, was twisted into something monstrous. This is the story of Auschwitz, not just as a site of horror, but as an engineered landscape of death, a place where cruelty was planned, drawn on blueprints, built brick by brick, and made to function with cold precision. When we think of Auschwitz, we often imagine the iconic gate, Arbeit Macht Frei, work sets you free. 3 words forged in iron, hanging like a cruel joke above the entrance. But the design of Auschwitz went far deeper than its symbols. Every fence, every block, every railway track was carefully calculated to dehumanize, to dominate, and ultimately to destroy. At its core, Auschwitz was never one camp, but a complex. Auschwitz I, the original barracks, converted from a Polish army base. Auschwitz II, Birkenau, the vast killing grounds. And Auschwitz III, the labor camp feeding Nazi industry. Together, they formed an ecosystem of exploitation and extermination. The first thing you notice in old maps of Auschwitz is the order. Straight lines, geometric layouts, almost military in their neatness. Rows of barracks, symmetrical roads, watchtowers at regular intervals. On paper, it looks organized, rational, like a well-planned community. But this is the sinister genius of its design. It cloaked horror in the language of order. It made atrocity look like administration. Auschwitz was not built in chaos. It was built with intent. And intent leaves fingerprints. German architects drafted detailed plans for barracks that could pack hundreds of prisoners inside, stacked on wooden bunks like cargo. Ventilation and sanitation weren't oversights, they were deliberately ignored. Because sickness, overcrowding, and despair were not accidents of the system. They were the system. Even the placement of watchtowers had a cruel efficiency. From almost any point inside the camp, a prisoner was visible. Escape wasn't just difficult, it was made to feel impossible. The design didn't just trap bodies, it trapped hope. But the most chilling element of all was the railway. At Birkenau, the Nazis extended train tracks right through the gates, directly into the camp. This wasn't done for convenience. It was done for speed, for efficiency, for turning mass murder into a logistical process. Cattle cars would roll in, packed with families who thought they were being relocated. The trains stopped at a long platform where SS officers made selections. The young and the strong sent to labor, the elderly, the sick, the mothers with children sent to their deaths. A few gestures of a hand decided the fate of thousands. Think about the psychology of this design. A single platform in plain sight of the gas chambers with rails leading in and out. It was a conveyor belt of human lives, designed with industrial clarity. And the camp itself became a factory, not of goods, but of death. The gas chambers, too, carried the mark of architectural intent. They were disguised as shower facilities with tiled walls and fixtures to reduce panic. Victims were led inside under the illusion of hygiene, only to face Zyklon B pellets dropping from openings above. The design wasn't crude, it was calculated to deceive, to pacify, to ensure compliance until the final moment. Afterwards, the crematoria, fitted with furnaces, disposed of bodies at a scale the world had never seen. Architects and engineers signed off on these plans. This was not madness without structure. It was bureaucracy turned into genocide. And yet, for all its evil, Auschwitz was not flawless. The system cracked under the weight of its own inhumanity. Prisoners documented what they saw, smuggling out testimonies and sketches. Some resisted, even inside the heart of the machine. In October 1944, members of the Sonderkommando, prisoners forced to work in the crematoria, staged an uprising, blowing up one of the crematoria buildings. For a brief moment, even the architecture of death was forced to break. To look at Auschwitz today is to confront a paradox. The barbed wire is rusting. The barracks stand silent. Tourists walk the same gravel roads where prisoners once marched. The place feels frozen, as though history itself has been set in concrete. But the deeper you look, the more you realize this silence was designed too. Because Auschwitz was meant not only to kill, but to erase, to reduce people to ash, to scatter their memory in smoke. The design of Auschwitz was not only about ending lives, it was about ending stories. And yet, the stories survived. In diaries buried in the soil, in scars carried by survivors, in the testimony of those who refused to let silence finish what the gas chambers began. What makes Auschwitz so terrifying is not just the scale of its cruelty. It is the realization that design, something we often associate with creativity, progress, even beauty, was turned into a tool of evil. That educated men with pencils and rulers sat at drafting tables, and instead of designing bridges or schools, they designed gas chambers. That bureaucracy, discipline, and order, qualities we normally prize, can become weapons when they serve inhuman goals. The true evil of Auschwitz lies in this. It showed us how ordinary systems, when twisted, can make extraordinary crimes seem normal. It revealed that horror does not always come in chaos. Sometimes it comes in blueprints. Today, when we visit Auschwitz, we walk through its gates, past its barracks, along its tracks. We stand where thousands once stood, and we wonder, how could human beings design this? How could architecture that should shape life be used to perfect death? There is no final answer. But maybe that's the point. Auschwitz forces us to see the dangerous truth that human genius and human evil can sometimes share the same hand, and that the line between creating and destroying is far thinner than we want to believe. The gates of Auschwitz still stand, and as long as they do, they speak, not just of what happened, but of what humans are capable of designing. The evil design of Auschwitz is a warning etched in brick, in rail, in ash. A warning that reminds us, never again is not a promise kept by words. It is kept by vigilance, by remembering, by refusing to let blueprints of cruelty ever be drawn again.